talk now. This MMA, what we talking about? Yeah, you tuned into the pod now. Gonna be hard for you to stop now. Yeah, we caged in. Yeah, we caged in. Yeah, we caged in.
Welcome back to another episode of Caged In. I'm your host, Chris DiCarlo. Today we got a very special guest making his return to the show. It's the boss man himself, Mike Polvere. How are we doing today, my man?
Doing all right. Thanks for having me on. It's been a little while, so I'm happy to be back.
Of course, man. It's always a pleasure to have you on. You are gearing up for a big fight night, another big card to end the year. Cage Titans 68 going down November 9th, of course, at Plymouth Memorial Hall in Plymouth, Massachusetts. How does it feel, getting ready for this one, man? It is the last one of the year. Are you excited or are you a little bit of relieved? What's the feelings like for you going into this one?
Man, it's crazy. This has been a tremendous year for us with some exciting fight cards. I'm never happy to the end of year because I just want to keep the ball rolling. So I kind of don't look at it as a year, but I mean, overall, for me, I think this year was kind of a step. I always talk about raising our bar, and I just think this was a year that we kind of raised our bar. One of those milestone years here in 2024. We pulled off the Giannetti versus Barrett fight that, for so long, I never thought we were going to have happen. And it's, we had at the beginning of the year, we can't even forget that Mitch Raposo getting his title fight victory and going on to the UFC. So we've had so many, we debuted the OG title. So it's been such a tremendous year. I think we just really leveled up because after that July card with Barrett and Giannetti, everybody's like, well, how are you going to top this? You kind of did everything you could do. And so then the challenge came back on me, all right, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to top this? And I think in September, we came with a super strong card. There was probably 4 fights that could have easily been the headliners for us in years past. So we just kind of hit you with high level fights. 4 fights that you easily, oh, that's not the main event. Oh, that's not the main event. Oh, that's not the main event. Kind of that deal. And I think that we're seeing that progression here in November as well. We announced Johnny Cupcakes versus Kris Moutinho, and everybody's like, oh, wow, that's an amazing fight. That's the headlining fight for Cage Titans. And it was like, oh, wait a minute. We got a heavyweight title for you too. And we bring back Yorgan to Castro after 10 years. So yeah, man, it's just, I look back, I'm not necessarily happy at ending. I don't really look at it that way, but I do look at it as a whole. 2024 will be looked at fondly in the evolution of Cage Titans.
For sure, man. Let's touch on this fight card a little bit. I know you got 17 fights lined up for this one, 7 pro, 10 amateur. Is that kind of just the way the fight card shook up a little bit, more Amis than pros, or is it just kind of availability?
Man, we probably would have had more pros. But a couple fights, Jack Congdon had his name in there, and then, unfortunately an injury pulled up. It's just kind of how it shook out. I was very nervous going into this card. I'll be real. There's 4 events going on in New England, Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. And a lot of these gyms are pulled, a lot of us promotions are pulling from the same gyms in some instances. Mm-hmm. So I was nervous there was going to be, a tough time getting fighters because, you got a guy like Ozzy Martin, for instance. We were talking about making his pro debut on this card, but now his team at Nostos in New Hampshire, they're going to NEF up in Maine. So now he's not available. So I thought we were going to see a lot of that. Teams were going to be forced to choose where they were going to go. But man, the card just kind of came together pretty easily. The names were just flowing, and that's it. There was names that I had to turn away. I just didn't have enough spots on the card. But yeah, man, it just kind of shook out that way. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, for sure, man. You touched on that headliner a little bit. Jahsua Marsh versus Yorgan de Castro for the heavyweight title. Obviously, we haven't seen Jahsua in the Cage Titans cage since he won the title. How exciting is it to have him back and have him face a guy like Yorgan, who is a legend here in New England?
Yeah, man. This is a cool fight. When Marsh won the title, we've had 2 experiences with Marsh. He came up and fought Battles. That was our first experience. Super nice guy, super great team. And then he came and took out Ras Hilton for the title. it was difficult to get him back up, to be quite honest, because like he doesn't like the cold. Like right after he won the title, I was like, don't call me in the cold months. So for a little while, it's been over a year. It was like, maybe we're not going to get him back. And, he did fights, a couple other fights elsewhere. But Yorgan kind of put the feelers out over the summer, and he had somebody hit me up and was like, hey, listen, Yorgan, looking at that title, and he wants to get another title. He'd love to come back to Cage Titans. He hasn't fought there in 10 years. He's fought everywhere as a pro, except for Cage Titans. He's fought in the UFC, PFL, Eagle FC when they were around, like, and then all the promotions locally. He has CES title, NEF. So when that seed was planted, I've been trying for the last 3 or 4 months to get this fight together. And now here we are. And I'm excited because Yorgan's just such a nice guy, and he really is a genuinely nice human being. As for Marsh, he's our title holder, and he's a wrestler by nature. We had him on our podcast, and he was talking about wrestling all the way through college and all that. And but make no mistake, if he starts fighting with Ross, he can throw some bombs and he can knock you out. And that plays, if this fight stays on the feet, the fans are in for a treat. And never mind the fact that it's a 20-foot cage. So like, there's not really much room for you guys to go besides stand there, especially in these big heavyweights.
Yeah, man. When those two clash is going to be something special, that's for sure. Let's talk about that co-main event a little bit, man. Kris Moutinho versus Johnny Campbell, another couple of legends from New England MMA scene. What was it like putting this fight together? Obviously, the names kind of sell themselves, man. But how excited are you for this one to have go down inside your cage in Plymouth?
Yeah, this is another one. It's Kris Moutinho was the first ever and probably the only ever will ever be triple champ as an amateur for Cage Titans. He's won the 25 title, the 35, the 45. And then he went pro, and he just never fought for Cage Titans. As a pro, he went. He had some success in CES, and he success. Made it all the way up to the UFC, and then he was up at Combat Zone, and he just never really. The stars never aligned, and it was nothing like bad. It was just, he went in a direction. I think CES was closer to his home, as a pro, so he could sell more tickets there. So it just never really worked out. But this event, Tyson Chartier and I was talking, and he was just like, "Hey, listen, you got anything from Moutinho?" And I'm like, I'm like, "What are you thinking? Like someone like The Party, someone like Cupcakes." One of those guys, like, because for me, I say this all the time. If somebody wants to know how to get into Cage Titans, look at your weight class and look who is somebody who continually fights for Cage Titans, and that's your in to get in with Cage Titans.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a 35er and you have a lot of fights, it's like, all right, cool. Like you can fight Perrin, you could fight Cupcakes, you can fight Valdina. If you're a 55er, you might be able to fight like Miguel Savesin, 70s Jack Congdon. So like there's a lot of like people like, how do I get in? It's like, look at the roster of guys who continually fight for us and fight one of them. And then you put on a great performance against one of them. And now you're back, and now you're in the Cage Titans mix with our fans and things of that nature. So essentially I said, listen, I don't know how much I have for him. I got The Party that's been asking about coming back. I got Cupcakes. If one of those makes sense, cool. If not, I don't know if I have anything else. And he came back, and it was, hey, listen, he wants Cupcakes rematch. And I know, being friends with Johnny, I've been friends with Johnny prior to MMA. We played hockey together. Known him for 18 years, something like that, 18, 19 years. So I knew he's always mentioned like, oh, I would love to kick, I'd love to kick Kris Moutinho's ass again. They had this weird like animosity after that fight. They have this weird vibes. You get like, I don't know why neither one of them like each other, but they just don't like each other. And he came back. He was like, of course I'll kick his ass again. it just kind of came together. And Moutinho wants to kind of get this one back. This one stung him. I believe this is his first rematch. And that's kind of how it came together. And I think that the fans of New England, the fight today and the way that we promote fights is going to be so much bigger than their first outing. Some people might even forget that they fought before. I just think that we have a great formula how we promote fighters and fights, that it's going to give this fight the shine that it deserves. And I'm excited to have it under our banner.
Yeah, man, I think I can speak for everybody when I say that we're all super excited for that one. When it was announced, I think that one kind of blew everybody's minds a little bit, that these two guys were coming in for a rematch and it was going to be inside the hall. And we know how much the hall lends itself to fights of that magnitude. So super excited for that one as well, man. We don't got to touch on every single fight, man. But going down the roster, you got, Zach DeSab and Luis Pena, Shaynis and Tom Santos. The return of Marty Navis, man. What was that like, getting the call that he wanted to come back out of retirement, man? And what was that like, matching him up with a fighter like the Earthquake and Aaron Trecell?
Whew, man, this fight's like one that's kind of, you talk about Moutinho and Cupcakes and Yorgan and, Shaynis and DeSab and Pena. You talk about all those 4 fights you just listed off, and it's like, oh shit, Marty Navis is fighting the Earthquake. Like, this is amazing. Kind of got tipped off last event when Jack Condon was fighting, that Marty was back in the gym and helping him train for his fight upcoming, his past fight against Kyron Bowen. And I got tipped off. They were like, hey, he's strongly considering November. And he had a name in mind. And right after the show, it was like, all right, who you got? Marty's in. He's 100% in. What do we got for him? And it, unfortunately, the name that he wanted didn't pan out. And right away, within the next week, Earthquake put his name in, and right when he put his name in, I'm like, yeah, this is the fight to make. Like, this is insane. It's just a fan-friendly fight. It's one of those fights that, the fans are gonna win. Whether you like Marty, like, if you like Marty, you would like Earthquake, because like their fighting styles are similar. They come to brawl. They're just like no nonsense, coming to throw down. And when I threw the name at Joe Lozon, he was like, all right, cool. Yeah, let's do that one. And then I went right back to Earthquake's team, Andy Cote, and he's like, yeah, we like that fight. And it's just, how do you not like the fight?
Yeah, of course.
And I think that both these guys at this stage of their careers, they're just kind of known at this point for like exciting and brawling and throwing down. So I think that this fight might have been hard to make, because we actually did try to make it, not too long ago. But it was like both guys kind of with their career projection, they were like, I want to stay away from him. I'd rather stay away from him. That's too risky of a fight. I think that at this stage of their career, like, Marty's coming back for one more. He's already made it. He said it to me, no matter what, he is retired. Like, this is it. Like, he wanted one more, and it was haunting him how he went out. And in the moment he retired, and then it's been bothering him. And he's like, but this is it. Like, this is truly it. This is one more. So I think, hey, I'm trying to keep this perfectly unblemished record to get to the UFC. All that stress kind of helped make this fight together for both guys. And like Marty said, this is it. This is one more. So he wants to go out with a bang and give the fans a vintage Marty Navis performance.
For sure, man. Let's touch on the undercard a little bit. I know the undercard's headlined by the amateur title fight between Jake Caskey and Fred Allen Sfeir. Coming off of Jake's last win, which was a banger inside the hall. Was this an easy matchup for you to kind of put him in for a title shot? And then how did the opponent come in with Fred Allen Sfeir? Yes.
So is it Sfeir? Because I still don't know.
I think it's Sfeir. I don't know. I'm doing my best over here.
All right, cool. Because since I've been making the fight, I'm like, I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name, and luckily we'll meet him in person when we see him at weigh-in, so we'll get all the pronunciations correct. But he's 6-2. He hasn't 8 amateur fights. He's not graced us down here at Cage Titans, so I'm excited for it. But yeah, Jake Caskey, this kid in his first fight, won fight of the year with Cage Titans in his debut against Dan Walsh. A memorable, like, top 10 Cage Titans amateur fight in history. He's just tough as nails. He trains with Billy Goff and those guys down there, and he's put together a nice little streak coming off back-to-back wins, and he called for that. He called his shot. He's like, and he even said it. Like, we were actually trying to line him up with Danny Jefferson. That was actually going to be the title fight. Danny is a firefighter. He has a lot of things going on. Like, MMA is not his end-all, be-all of his life. So,
right.
Danny fights if the scheduling works, but like he's not pushing it to the forefront. So it just didn't, the stars didn't align. He could have fought 2 events ago, but then Jake was hurt, so he couldn't. And then we kind of missed it, and we were hoping to put it together here, but Danny couldn't fight here. So then the challenge was on. It really was like, who the hell could I get? And, I know Fred had a great title performance back at Combat FC. And, he's a great fighter at the New England Cartel. And we don't see a lot of the New England Cartel guys down at Memorial Hall. They usually fight up in New Hampshire. So, once we got Moutinho locked in, they're like, hey, I got this other guy that's super tough to match, Fred. He's 6-2. He's a beast. And I'm like, well, tell me he's a 45er. And they're like, yeah, he's a 45er. And I was like, all right, I got the guy. And that fight just kind of fell in my lap a little bit because we've been trying to line up this title fight for Caskey since he made the call out. And it's taken 2 or 3 shows to finally get somebody to step up. And it was to the stage where, like, hey, if I don't have anybody to fight you for the title, like, just get me any type of fight. And Fred's in. And this should be a banger of a fight. I mean, Jake Caskey's never in a boring fight. And you look at a guy like Fred, who's 6-2, all that experience as an amateur, this kid's going to bring it. He's training with those guys up there. Great team, great school. It's going to be a fun one to watch.
For sure, man. Looking at the rest of the undercard with all these amateur fights that you guys put together, some of the bigger names that kind of pop out, you had them on your show the other day, Ruben Bitar and Eric Wynn, 2 very exciting amateurs fighting out of the same gym. You got the fight with Carter Whitty and Dalton English. Who else is on here? Jake Callender and Santi Munoz is another banger. What fights on this undercard kind of stand out to you as the ones that you're most excited for, or the favorite ones that you've made?
Man, I mean, there's so many great fights, like even on this undercard, like, you got a guy, like you mentioned it, Sandy Muniz versus Jake Callender, both guys undefeated as in their amateur careers, both at featherweight. You easily see whoever wins this fight could be challenging for this title, next show sometime in 2025. That's an exciting fight. The Eder Gomez versus Eric Wynn. Again, if Eder gets this win, he could be next in line for a title fight at 55. Ruben Bitar and Eric Zane. Eric Zane's another Dexter MMA guy. He looked tremendous in his debut with Cage Titans. He's got that really great wrestling background, and he's just training with studs, Caskey and Billy Goff. So Ruben Bitar versus Eric Zane's going to be another one. Those are a couple that stand out. But I mean, then you look at guys like Matt Martinez, Pikachu, taking on Will Portillo, like another great fight in the flyweight division. So man, it's just, the guys are really stepping up. Like I said it about, years past. I say this a lot. Like, I think this has been a transition in the last year to 2 years. In the years before that, people were allergic on the local scene to tough fights. They wanted to get in there and just beat somebody up in front of their friends and family. And not really challenge themselves with these tough fights. There were guys who did, but more often than not, it was, I don't want to fight that guy. Like, I want to do this. I want to do that. And people are a lot more picky. Now guys are rolling the dice on themselves. And I think that the formula of being very picky and choosy about your fights to get to a perfect unblemished record and then get to the UFC and go 0-2, I mean, that formula is kind of played out. And I think people see that now. They're like, yeah, I don't want to go that route. I want to take some tough fights, learn something about myself, and then progress. And when I get there, be able to win fights. So I think that's helpful. And that's why I love these matchups. And then just to kind of circle back to the title fight, what I love about that, and I preached this since day one of Cage Titans amateur titles, our amateur titles are not about who sells tickets and who's the most popular. And that's what I really appreciate about our amateur titles. This is a fight between a guy from Connecticut and a guy from New Hampshire, and they're meeting in Massachusetts, in Plymouth. So, like, it's just a testament to the amateur program that we have at Cage Titans. It's like, it's not necessarily about who sells the tickets. It's like, who is the best? And when somebody wins our title as an amateur, it's like, that's kind of that stamp of like, yeah, you are the best in New England. And I love that about it. And I love that about this title fight as well, because, a lot of times you see guys that are just fighting for titles at 1-2-1 or one. It's just like because they sell a bunch of tickets
Right.
and you're like, how is this a title fight? It's like for us, I'm confident when we put that belt on the line that these are the best of the best, and I think the track record shows. You look at this belt, for instance, like like some of our past amateur title fighters, like our holders, Rob Font, Kris Moutinho, Kyle Bochniak, who went on to the UFC, like Peter Barrett, Joe Giannetti, like these guys. Like it's very rare that you see a guy who won an amateur title and then didn't really do anything with beyond
Right.
that. Most of these guys, like that's a huge kind of feather in their cap, and then they go on to a very successful pro career. So I'm excited about this matchup too.
For sure, man. It's definitely a hell of a card that you built. Like I said, 17 fights. It's rolling pretty deep. We've touched on a lot of them, man. But is there one fight in particular that's like a sleeper fight that maybe nobody's really talking about that you're really excited for?
Ooh, I think I'm pretty excited. Like, I mean, Marty Navis versus Earthquake. I feel like by design would be the sleeper fight because it's fifth from the top of the card. So like it's kind of hiding behind the main event, co-main event, and the featured fights. But it is actually a fight that everybody's talking about. So I mean, by design, that should be the sleeper fight because it's a little lower on the card, but it's probably talked about just as much as the upper fights. So for a pro fight, I'll give you the Dan Shapiro versus Jacobo Apito fight. Both guys were stud as amateurs, amateur title holders, and they're both coming into this 2-2 in their pro career. And, I don't like bringing up bad stuff when you promote a fight, but like they both have one loss on their record to Rob Fuller. They both lost to Rob Fuller. And I that's part of this story as well. Like, right. I think that the loss to Rob and why he's great for debuting pros or like early pros is because if you take him lightly and you think it's just a walkover, you quickly realize as a pro, things are just different. And he could kind of catch you off guard. And I think why I'm excited about this fight and why I'm bringing up losses when I'm promoting two guys is that maybe that happened with both of these guys. It happened to both guys. Dan lost to Rob and Jacobo lost to Rob. And then Jacobo took a ton of time off because I think he realized, okay, this is for keeps now. I can't take anybody lightly no matter what. It's pros. It stays with you. And I think both guys have taken that loss and really leveled up their game and their commitment to it. And that's why I'm excited to see this fight. And I think it should be one for you guys to circle that you're not probably talking about. And you're like, why do you care about this fight? They both lost to Rob Fuller. It's like the amount of improvement and dedication both these guys have made since then. That's what I want to see. And that's why I'm excited, because when they were amateurs, Jacobo was a double champ. He was a 25 and 35 champ. Like the sky was the limit for both of these guys. And then that early loss kind of set them back. But they've only leveled up. I know that Dan Shapiro's down in Florida now training with Bang Muay Thai gym with Vince McGinnis, who's a former Cage Titans fighter. Like they're just leveling up, and Jacobo's with Jeff Perez. I just think that both these guys are extremely talented, and they both took a hard loss in their early pro career, and they've now since turned the dial up. And I think you guys are going to be benefit of that, seeing them in the cage squaring off.
Awesome, man. And I know you guys always have some tricks up your sleeve when it comes to fight night. You had Ty Law in there with the t-shirt cannon. We had the Mitraposo package and all that stuff that you guys have done. Do you guys have anything up your sleeve for November 9th that you can kind of tip your head to, or is it going to keep it a secret?
Man, I'll tell you this. We got some big stuff coming for the beginning of the year. So we're already planning next year. We have all next year's dates, all 6 shows. Like, we're a promotion that we have some sort of plan in place. Like, it's not like we're just doing November 9th. And then it's like, what do we do after November 9th? When's your next show? I don't know when our next show is. Like, we know everything's planned out. We know who's slated for these cards ahead of time. So I'll tell you this, you guys will be in for a treat on November 9th. Not just with the fights that are going on in that cage. We have some big things that we plan on announcing at intermission. We got some fights that are already matched for January 25th, Cage Titan 69, first show of the year. So we got some good fights for you, and we got some good announcements. I'll leave it at that, and let's clip this, and then you're going to have to play it side by side after November 9th when you have the actual video of what we do announce that night.
Perfect, man. We'll definitely do that. Let's talk about, 2024 in recap real quick, man. Where does the success of Cage Titans in this calendar year, where does this rank amongst other years for you? Is it at the top or is it close?
I mean, it's hard. Like it's I got 5 kids. Which one do you love the most? It's just like, but I mean, I think 2024, I mean, what do they call it? Recency bias. Like, of course, like we're biased because we're right here and it's fresh in our minds, but it will be a tough one to top. We look back at it, Mitch Raposo, going to the UFC, winning our title at the beginning of the year, pulling off the Peter Barrett versus Joe Giannetti fight. And then I feel like I said at the earlier part of the interview, like the level of cards that we're putting on now, it is just another level. Oh, John Piersma this year, like the run that Piersma went off, his first Cage Titans fight ever is January, and then he rattles off 3 fights in a row, and he's headlining cards, and he's winning titles, and he goes on to the road to the UFC. So I mean, it's just like this year there was a lot of big moments, and I just think that this was I don't want to like be a braggart, but like I think that we kind of separated ourselves even more, like, and kind of solidified us as like, okay, we are the promotion. Like, it's Nick in our social media team, and like we used to joke around, like we're kind of like the little engine that could, like, we're just quietly doing our work over here and not really, looked at beyond like, hey, what we do here in Plymouth, in our own little world. I think that our footprint is growing, and what we're doing is growing, and we're kind of solidifying ourselves. Like what we knew all along, or what I knew all along, is like, just build it, and just keep building and never get too ahead of yourself. And, I just think that this year was a monumental year where like we had 2 guys as pros fighting on our card that neither one of them were local. They were both fly-ins. Like that's unheard of as what you would call a quote unquote regional promotion. No other promotions are doing that besides like LFA, which is a solidified staple promotion. Yeah. Now you see us kind of getting into that a little bit, and we're getting sought out. Like Violent Bob Ross, like how it happened. Like he wanted you, if you've heard in an interview, like he wanted to fight for Cage Titans because he saw what we were doing. And I think this was kind of like a monumental year from that perspective. Like, hey, what we've been doing for many years, now people are starting to catch up. Like, oh shit, yeah, they're doing something. They're doing something right over there, and we're getting that more, solidified as the promotion here in New England, and expanding a little bit further as well.
For sure, man. I think that has to do with a lot of what you guys do outside of the cage as well, with, like you said, the social media team, the footprint you guys kind of have on the internet is, it broadens itself every day. You're sitting in the Table Titans podcast studio that you guys built, just kind of expanding everything like a day at a time. Talk to me about, like how proud you are of the footprint that you guys are leaving on social media and the internet, and, how you are able to expand kind of those things that maybe some other, quote unquote regional promotions aren't doing.
I mean, this stuff is just second nature to us. Like, even going back to, our early days, like taking pictures at a weigh-in, taking pictures at the fights, and releasing pictures, like, showing this, like videoing the weigh-ins and things like that. It's like, man, these are no brainers. And it's just like, it's always been like that for us. So it's just like, it's great to have the footprint. It's great to get the notoriety. It's great that our fighters can walk into places and get recognized. Like, Andy shares stories with me that he gets recognized, and, it's cool. So like, we're doing the right thing. I just think that we had to build from the ground up. Like anytime you can like build like the grassroots, like come from the bottom up, a lot of times promotions will have money and they just think they can throw money at stuff and they're going to get there. And it's like, you know what? Well, if we don't have it, we're going to kind of like work towards it. Like we, if we didn't have a lighting rig for years, we had work lamps on our cage, but that's what we were back then. And, took us, 8-9 years to buy a cage. So like, it's just like we've built everything. And I think our fans have been along for the ride to see us grow, and they've part of our journey. I think that's also why our fans connect to our fighters. They're a part of their journey. We're bringing them along. And I don't know, man. It's a great question. I just think that it's amazing what we're doing. We've always been, also internally, we joke all the time, like we're a marketing company that happens to market fights and fighters. Right. My background's in sales and marketing. I was regional sales manager, director of marketing for a company. When I first started, right before I started Cage Titans. So, I'm looking in our podcast office at posters, when I fought, and it was like, there wasn't posters with your picture on it. Right. And I got one right here. I'm going to pull it out.
Break it out, man.
So what I did is I went and made my own poster with myself on my, and it was like the hang up around and things like that. So it's like that stuff wasn't done. And when I started Cage Titans, I'm like, man, this is pretty easy stuff. Like you're just marketing people and you're marketing events. So, it's also cool to kind of see where it's going for other promotions, because now you see other promotions being like, oh, hey, listen, they're kind of copying some of the playbook, which is great. Like, if you can get more fighters out there into the spotlight, these guys, I was a fighter too, like the blood, sweat, tears, you like make them feel important, make them feel special, like help them out and give them materials to help sell fights. When I fought, it was, here's tickets, go sell. How many tickets can you sell? All right, cool. I'll get you on a card. Like you had to kind of buy your way on a card. And it's like, and they gave you no tools. Now it's like, we're giving you tools. We're giving you social media posts and photos, and we're coming up with like media days and press conferences, and even like our podcast. Like, we've been doing the Cage Titans podcast every Monday this season we've been doing them on Tuesdays, but it's been like every Monday. I mean, we've been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah,
like
that's awesome.
It's like, it's the Peter Barrett versus Giannetti fight was originated on a Cage Titans Table Titans podcast. Giannetti showing up because he saw us online, and Peter Barrett was talking shit about him, and he's like, I'll be there in 5 minutes or 25 minutes. And he literally drove down. So yeah, man, it's just, it's our footprint is what I started as a marketing company, a marketing mind that loved MMA, saw what other promotions at the time were doing, and being like, yeah, I can do this better. And we just continue that formula. We always try to remember, like, what are we at our core? At our core, we're a marketing company that markets fighters.
For sure, man. I think it's all about, kind of adjusting and adapting to whatever is new and whatever is coming out. Do you guys have any like future plans on where you can kind of take it next? Because like you said, you are kind of like up to date as far as like the photos and the videos and the social media and the internet and all that stuff. Do you kind of figure out like what the next step is for you guys there, or you just kind of keep doing what you're good at?
I think we just kind of keep, you can't always just, so I say keep doing what we're good at, of course. But just because something worked today or 6 years ago doesn't mean it's going to work tomorrow. So that's another thing I learned early in business when I worked, for that company. I worked for Mr. Tux. And, one of the things that they taught me, the owner taught me, was like, just because it worked yesterday, just because it worked today, just because it worked 10 minutes ago, just because it worked an hour ago or 6 years ago, whatever it is, always look to improve and change something. And I never forget that. So like, yes, we're going to continue with our playbook, but we're also always going to try to add a little something. 2 shows ago, we brought back doing the outdoor workout in front of Memorial Hall. We do the press conference here and there if we can get the fighters there. We have the like, I don't know. So there's going to be things. I'm not sure what it is. I think hitting the pavement a little harder with our fighters and getting them a little bit more comfortable in front of the cameras and social media. A common thing I hear a lot, like, I feel like a loser. No one wants to hear from me. And it's like, trust me, people want to hear from you. You like, there's somebody watching an interview with you and you think you're a loser, a dork talking about your fight. And there's somebody watching you being like, damn, I wish I had the balls to do that. You're doing something special. You're doing something cool. And I think doing stuff like that, we'll add stuff like that. I think that a next evolution would probably be bringing in more sponsors. That's just kind of like, because we were kind of looked at as like the little engine that could, and we don't, we don't have any real sponsors that are like big time contributors. Like,
Right.
getting some sponsors that that blue chip sponsor kind of that you hear people talk about, like, having some insurance company on the wall, or
Right.
they got all the money, but something like that, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
being able to kind of dive into that. I do like Big Mikey has been starting to do some community stuff. We did it in years past and we kind of got away from it. But like the backpack drive and doing things with the community a little bit more outside the fighting is something that I'd like to see us, kind of go to next. Whether it be like in the past, we've adopted families over the holidays, food drives, whatever we can do, kind of get more out there in the community and just get these fighters out there even more just as people in the community. I was talking about Plymouth High School, Plymouth North or South, I forget which one, but they were looking for a wrestling coach. And I'm like, all right, let me get one of our fighters. Maybe they might be interested. And then I was jokingly with Adam Russell, who's our DJ, and his son's on the wrestling team. I said, well, why don't you and I coach? I was like, I don't know much about wrestling. I said, but maybe every week we'd have a special guest wrestler fighter like run our practice with us and things like that. But like, just kind of like getting the fighters out there and doing more things and kind of have them get seen as like the local celebrity that they kind of are. And that's something that I could see us doing. And then also getting our product out to the masses a little bit more. I think that, like, as much as we all think that everybody knows Cage Titans, like there's people that don't know Cage Titans. Like, so like, we live in our bubble that Cage Titans is it, but getting us a little bit more spread out. We did that last event. We did the Fight Day weigh-in show with James Lynch, who has a great presence online. And that was very well received, very well watched, which was amazing. So like just kind of getting us out a little bit more. That I think that's another phase that we have to get to, is like, kind of just get a little bit more out there into the MMA space. And maybe one day, it just keeps growing from there. I don't know. There you go. Sorry, I don't have much more than that.
No, for sure, man. 100%. I think you guys are obviously really good at what you do, man. And you guys put on such a great product, and all the fighters that I talk to that fight for you guys, they always have such great things to say about fighting for Cage Titans. I've never heard a bad word, man. So obviously what you guys are doing is working, man. And you guys are growing day by day. Before I get you out of here, man, one last time, Cage Titans 68 going down November 9th, Plymouth Memorial Hall. If the people haven't bought a ticket yet, man, why should they get a ticket to the show?
Listen, this fight card is just littered from start to finish with like banger after banger. This is one of those fight cards, like, some other fight cards kind of get like, they kind of get like brought down because there's like one big fight that you're all looking forward to, and then it's just like a bunch of filler stuff. Like, this is a fight card where it's just like, oh shit, that fight's happening on this card. Oh, wait a minute, that one. We talked about all the amateur fights. It's like you got Caskey versus Fred Allen for the title, but then it's just like you got undefeated Calendar and Sandy Muniz on the card too. They're the fourth fight of the night. What? And it's like, oh, wait a minute, we have Pikachu, Matt Martinez, and Portillo. You got Eder Gomez, who's an undefeated stud. You got Ruben Bitar, who's an undefeated stud. Like, it's just like, wait, those guys are on the cards as well. And that's only on the amateur portion. Then, you go to the pro, there's 7 pro fights. You got the return of Christina Katsikis taking on a tough girl from Tom Galecchio. I don't know if you remember him from The Ultimate Fighter. It's his student. So he's coming out, and, KK versus her, the return of the meat grind is going to be exciting. That's the first pro fight that you're really excited for. And then we go into the Jacobo fight and Dan Shapiro, which I said is probably the one you definitely want to circle. Then you go to the next one. It's like Earthquake versus Marty Navis. And you're like, dude, I could be done right there. And that would be a fight card. It's like, wait a minute, there's 4 more. You got D. Sabin Pena, you got Sheamus and Santos, you got Moutinho and Cupcakes. Then you could be done. It's like, wait a minute, we got a heavyweight title fight. This is just one of those fights cards from start to finish. It's there's no filler. It's just actions nonstop, fight after fight after fight. And I think, as we talked about earlier, how we raise our bar, these are the type of cards that raise our bar. Before, in years past, we might have 1 or 2 fights that you're like, oh shit, I can't wait to see. And now it's like, there might be 1 or 2 fights that you're just like, I don't really care that much about that fight. And the rest is just all insane fights. So yeah, if you haven't got your tickets, hit up your favorite fighter. As always, they get paid a part of all their ticket sales. And it's great for them as a fighter to just get some extra revenue for themselves. So hit up your favorite fighter first and foremost. If you can, get tickets. And if you can't, hit up your favorite fighter, or whatever the case may be, you can always go to CageTitansFC.com and get your tickets. And for anybody who's watching that's not in New England, Spectation Sports is our broadcast partner. They got you covered. You can catch the entire fight live on Spectation Sports. Just like ticket sales, use your favorite fighter's promo code, his whole last name, his or her last name, because unlike any other promotion that I know of, we also incentivize our fighters, so they get paid a portion of every sale they have for anybody who streams the fights as well. So there's another revenue stream for our fighters to get some extra money. So that's my soapbox stance on why Cage Titan 68 is the one to see.
There you go, man. Mike, thanks for taking the time on here, man, and coming to talk to me. I appreciate it as always. I'll see you inside the building on November 9th.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Got down for the count and he can't even talk now. This MMA, what we talking about? Yeah, you tuned into the pod now. Gonna be hard for you to stop now. Yeah, we caged in. Yeah, we caged in. Yeah, we caged in.